In the Huddle was created to give student athletes, parents and coaches an inside look at the journey through US college sport and all that comes with it. The demands, the experiences, the excitement and the opportunities available to our student athletes from around the world. Study and Play USA facilitates a comprehensive, customised approach for student athletes and families for their whole journey, from their high school preparation years right through to US college graduation.
All right, welcome to another exciting episode of In the Huddle, where today we're sitting down with Mr. Stewart Briggs, founder of Acceleration, an Australian-based company focused on helping athletes develop strength and conditioning and importantly, power and speed, as the name suggests. In the context of the US college system, these are, of course, pretty essential elements that athletes need to improve across all sports. And as far as Stewart's background, he's had extensive working experience in this field inside the US collegiate system. So he's got a very unique perspective, which I'm pretty keen to share with listeners in this episode, and also learn some incredibly valuable tips for preparing yourself athletically for the rigors of US college sport. We're going to take this opportunity also to officially announce our partnership with Acceleration, and which is very exciting, and unpack the many benefits we feel that are available through this partnership for our student athletes. So let's get right into it. Stuart, welcome to In the Huddle.
Thanks, Chris. I'm pumped to be here, so thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, very happy to have you too. Look, one of the reasons we resonate with you and what you do at Acceleration, Stuart, is the fact that you've got a pretty good understanding, a pretty intimate understanding of the US college system, and that gives you a pretty unique perspective, as I said at the top there. So can we start off, tell us a little bit about your experience, how did that all come about, and what was your experience like over there?
Yeah, Chris, look, it sits at the heart of why we're doing business together is that I'm very passionate about the US college experience. I think for a young Australian to go over and study in the US and use sport as a vehicle, I don't think there's potentially a better experience that you can get as a young person. So that passion comes through in my company, but also in our partnership. So I'm really excited about working with you.
Amen to that, mate. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's a great thing that we share together. So look, I experienced the US. It was just out of the blue in 1993. I applied for to go on exchange. So there was an exchange between Southern Cross University, which is in Lismore, New South Wales, and Bowling Green State University. And Bowling Green State University had a sport management program and exercise science. I went over, I was studying exercise science at Southern Cross University and went over to Bowling Green to study. The idea for me, I wasn't an athlete like your listeners, but I was an athlete, but not to that level. But I was already studying in Australia, and I really wanted to get the American experience. I basically wanted to learn from the Americans about how they trained athletes and how that system worked, and be able to come back to Australia. So initially, I went on exchange. Once I finished the semester, which was a fantastic experience, studying at Bowling Green, I went on, I visited the Chicago Bulls. They had Luke Longley at the time, had a great one-day visit there in Chicago. And then I also went to the National Institute of Fitness and Sport in Indianapolis, Indiana, and worked at the place where the Indiana Pacers trained.
Yeah, right.
The Pacers weren't training at the time, but I had all these crazy experiences. I was there for 5 weeks, learned under the strength conditioning guy who looked after Pete Sampras,
Right.
Mike Nishihara, has passed away since. Really brilliant man. And they were really big into movement and plyometrics and everything. After experiencing true strength training at Bowling Green, it was great to see something different.
Yeah.
And then I also learned under Bill Deans, who ended up becoming the Indiana Pacers strength conditioning coach for about 5 years, under a very successful tenure with Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic as well. He was the assistant. So I learned a lot under them. Went back to Australia, finished my studies for my bachelor's degree, and then applied to do my master's in education at Bowling Green State University. Studied there for about a year and a half. I got through my master's fairly quickly, Fantastic. Once again, really different studying in the US versus Australia. Really liked the difference, to be honest. And then once I finished my master's, I was offered a position at Bowling Green as an assistant strength coach for a couple of years. Stayed there for 2 years as an assistant, and then applied for a head strength conditioning coach job at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yep.
At Drake, funnily enough, they have a fantastic tennis center there in the 1990s, and a great program. Both locations had multiple sports, but both mid-tier Division I schools, both great experiences in their own right. One as an assistant strength coach, second one as the head strength coach. And then in the year 2000 came back to Australia for personal family reasons. But realistically, from a professional standpoint, I went to America to learn from the Americans with the vision of starting Acceleration Australia. We created the name on the flight back to Australia.
Right.
We knew what we were doing. We knew exactly how I was going to go about it. I had a vision, and I learned a lot over that period of time. You're talking, the Americans work very, very hard, and I grew up essentially professionally in America in the college system, following college sport. So I am a big proponent of college sport.
That's really good. I didn't understand how I didn't know that you had planned all the acceleration before that, and so it's almost a proactive professional development undertaking that you've done there. So I had assumed that you've gone over there, you've been inspired by that, saying, you know what, we should do this back here. We'll start something. But you've planned it all along, mate.
I did. I planned it because I'm very Australian. I wanted to come back and make a difference to Australian athletes, and I felt like a lot of those things that I learnt in America were really could give me an upper edge, but also I could build the pyramid, and having a company, I can work with athletes at all different levels and at different times in their lifespan, and with teams and clubs and schools and that sort of thing. So it gives you a lot of choice, whereas I didn't. That just suited my personality. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good part of the story I didn't realise. So, look, we've chatted off air a few times about the differences, right, between the Australian, I guess, let's call it the S&C industry, and the US. And I don't think people would probably truly or fully understand it until they go to the US to sort of see those differences. And obviously you did that. And it can be quite surprising for our athletes when they first arrive over there, the different expectations, the different focuses that they have. So can you talk me through, I guess, some of the key differences that you saw over there and what you've seen since?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually, because it'll give your listeners a great insight into it, so they know what to expect. And it's a lot better once they know what to expect.
Agree.
For a start, the Americans as a society, are a very results-orientated society. So when you have an interview, they're interested when they interview you about what have you done. Yeah. In Australia, when you get interviewed, it's how are you going to fit in, or more process orientated. That's the same with corporate, and it's the same with sport. So they're very bottom line. What's the win and loss? You are what you, as a coach, you own a win. So just having that results focus, if you're a strength conditioning coach, they want numbers. So they want, how much is your bench press, how much is your squat, how much is this, how much is that. And the coaches mandate that on the strength conditioning coaches. So understanding what their KPIs are, you then, as an athlete, come in and go, well, what's this strength coach trying to do? Like, what are we testing? And then we're going to train, and then they're going to retest or whatever. And is this strength conditioning coach happy with me? So they're a little bit more size, depending on the sport. They're a little bit more size and very much strength focused, a little bit less science focused. But that trend is changing quite rapidly. The Americans really look to the Australians a bit more in terms of this, a little bit. They're getting more sport specific. They're getting more scientific.
And are you finding it the same the other way as well? Is it sort of merging the two philosophies?
Good, really good point. That's a little bit of the issue with the Australian focus is we're probably not strength focused enough, or we're not preparing the body for the level of contact or the athleticism that they're going to experience in America. So the Australians need to sometimes get a little bit more strength focused and size focused depending on the sport and what their goals are. But the Americans need to become more scientific, and they are starting to definitely blend to the stage where I was the first ever Australian strength and conditioning coach to work in the US on any basis, if not full time. So, and that was so I was full time in '96 with Bowling Green, and now there's many Australians working over there. Not so much in college, but definitely in pros, but some in college as well. I've got one gentleman that's at Brigham Young University, who's a prac student. He was at Milwaukee Bucks for about 7 seasons, I think, and then he just switched to Brigham Young's. And he's very science focused. Michael Davey, great young strength and conditioning coach, and he's doing a fantastic job. But there's going to be heaps of strength coaches like that going forward. But I think probably the blend of it is modeling an athlete off another athlete. The issue is that sometimes they model men, like as in professional athletes. So you kind of got to see that model. If you're a short point guard from Australia, you model off Chris Paul and what's his body weight, what's his height, 6 foot tall, he weighs 188 pounds, that sort of stuff. Yep. All right, what's that in kilograms? What's that in centimeters? All that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Model off him. All right, well, what were his stats when he was in college? So he was not 188, he was 178.
Yes.
Okay. And that was when he was a senior. So what did he come in as a freshman? You know what I mean?
Right.
So keeping that in perspective, but that's just an example of a basketball player, but tennis, same thing. They need to be prepared, an Australian or athletes from all sorts of parts of the world, they need to be prepared before they get to America of what they're going to be going in. And that's the difference between America and Australia is that.
Yeah, you've just reminded me. Back when I was in college, it was sort of late 90s, and we had a standard, our 2 gym sessions a week were just happened to be shared in the gym with these scrawny little tennis players with the football team. And we used to joke and go up to the biggest guy we can possibly see, hey, mate, you need a spot. But we had the same trainer. So a lot of the mentality for the tennis team was you need to get big like these footballs. And we said, oh, well, hang on, we're not used to this and we don't need that. And so I would be back then getting faxes from my physio back here, giving me some tips to sort of get around those sort of things. So that's changing definitely, and that's changed a lot since then, as you say, which it needed to.
Me too.
So yeah, it's very exciting actually. I think the merge of the two, because I think it's not about saying Australia knows best and we've got everything sorted here, and the US I think is coming around to, and as you say, realizing let's take some of the science from down under and mold it.
Yeah.
Here as well. So I'm going to come back to what sort of things that some of these athletes can be doing here. We'll come back to that at the end, I think. But so just rewinding, so you've come back from your US experience, pumped, as you say, come up with a name on the plane, full of passion, full of ideas, and, I'm going to change the way that we look at SNC speed and, ultimately acceleration. So can we just have a quick history of, the inception of acceleration to now and how that's evolved, mate?
Yeah, no, it's great. The obviously, like any great story, it's over 23 years now, and we started off just at Auckland Flower in Brisbane. It's relatively about 2 kilometres from the CBD of Brisbane. You just have these little goals and so forth, but you've got to start off with something. And I wrote a mission, and that was to help athletes move faster, get stronger, jump higher for sporting competition. Our logo and our name was Acceleration Australia. Well, obviously it's in Australia, but acceleration was all about the one thing that I thought when I was sitting down watching my American football team play, I'm like, what's the one thing that separates these teams whenever I'm sitting down? I'm like, I know my team's the strongest and we're beating them up on the line and that sort of stuff, and we're moving guys around. But if the other team's got speed to burn, they're going to kill us, Yep. And so speed, acceleration, specifically acceleration, because you don't get to run in a straight line for very long. And in nature, that's the case as well. So agility, speed, agility, but acceleration, so 0 to 100 as fast as you can, right? So that's the name for acceleration. The logo's a running man, a running person. They're muscular, so that shows strength. So we put a lot of thought into the logo all the way through to the mission. Our vision is very, we want to provide world-class training at all times. So it's very much about our coaches. It's not about the facilities.
Yes.
You'll notice, which I really like about America, they've got fantastic facilities and so forth. And it's good to have the facilities, but I would prefer the high-level coach if I can every day of the week.
I think also, mate, too, living in Australia, right, you need mobility because, it's not, in the US, we don't have, it's quite easy to access facilities because it's, the geography is different, right? So, I like the fact you've got mobile coaches who will go to these athletes.
Yeah, it's really big for me. So over the 23 years we've been through, obviously, we have had school programs for 16 years, 8 years, big programs, big state body programs like Basketball Queensland. We're going into our 12th year, stuff like that. So we've been involved with those large organizations, helping kids go to the AIS or NBA Global Academy, or tennis players to try and play at a higher level, or rugby teams to win championships and that sort of stuff. But it's all part of the journey. Like, I love just being part of an athlete's journey. So our focus was always the center. So there were only just starting out, that was just starting out in America when I left. There were a lot of private performance enhancement companies coming along, and I love the word performance. So none of our coaches are actually called strength conditioning coaches. They're actually called performance coaches, so head performance coach, head performance specialist.
Yep.
So the word performance, high performance manager, I think I came up the term high performance manager before it was ever even created, because I actually believe that performance is the end thing, because it's very American. So like, performance at the end of the day is what matters. Yeah.
Practice all you like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you come to do a performance training session, you're actually not just lifting a weight up and down, you're preparing your mind and your body for competition.
Yep.
And that's what you should be doing every time you come into any session. So very much the individualization of training is important to us, so that way that's really key for us. I also started building a software from scratch in 2002. It's now 21 years old. Built on the cloud, called Accelerware, and that's how we write all our programs. Every program's written on the cloud. I don't know how many programs we've written now. There'd have to be 1 million programs probably written on there by now.
Yeah.
So so that way we can train online. So I'm from the country originally. I didn't go all the way back. So I'm country Queenslander from halfway between Chinchilla and Mandubra on a cattle station called Organ Station.
Yep.
Went to boarding school in Rockhampton. Know what it's like to train by myself in the backyard or whatever, or in my bedroom lifting weights and stuff like that. Didn't know what I was doing. So I really wanted to make a difference to all kids all over Australia, if not the world. But specifically, I focused on Australia to try to make a difference. So that was really big. So that was a big part of it. But probably the other one, and that'll come up again, is motivation through education. So educating athletes, saying, hey, this is why you should trigger point. This is the reason why you need to do the trigger points before you train. Don't do static stretches before you train, that sort of stuff. It's better to do those after if you're going to do them, and all that sort of stuff. But, why? Having the reason why, having the documentation as well, so show the athletes the reasons why. Yep. And then the other big one is movement, just really big movement. So obviously focus is speed and that sort of thing, but everything else overlaid onto that. So we're always studying the way a human being moves, so that way we can be better for our athletes, so we do a better job for them.
Yeah. That's really wonderful, because the why is a big one with education these days in general, especially this generation. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good change rather than just saying, hey, 5-minute cool down, go stretch. I never did that when I was a kid because I didn't get it. Why? Why am I doing it? So if I knew that that's going to prevent injury and I should stretch while I'm warm, or for someone to explain that to me, how it's going to help me tomorrow, I probably would have been better at stretching and probably wouldn't be sitting here with a very sore hip as we speak. But that's another story. Yep. But no, that's really, really great. And congratulations on taking something from scratch, building it, devising it, planning it, and bringing it to so many people. And the accessibility, as you touched on, I think is really cool and only easier now to do, right, with your Accelaware and the way the world's going. And this doesn't need to be something you need to move to the city to access and things like that. So in a country like Australia, that philosophy makes a lot of sense. We've got such a sparse population. So congratulations, mate. I think it's awesome. Want to pick your brain, Stewart, on some real takeaways that I want our listeners to grab today. And by the way, listeners, if you're a parent, please encourage your teen athlete to have a listen to this episode, because we're about to provide some tips, or more specifically, Stewart is, that you can use as early as today. So what I'd like to do, Stewart, is just ask you to, I guess, imagine you're talking to a room full of 12 to 14-year-old boys and girls across a whole array of different sports. What could they and should they be doing at this age from a strength and conditioning and strength and speed and power sort of perspective? And I'm talking about the extras aside from their normal standard team training and individual training through their club or school. So what are some of the things they could be doing in the comfort of their own home or backyard at this stage?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I know it's the earlier part of the journey for the budding college athlete, because this is the same thing that we're experiencing at Acceleration. Our original target market was 12 to 18-year-old athletes at Acceleration. So we wanted to make a difference to, high school aged athletes. Right, cool, they can do this. But we're getting a very strong secondary market of 8 to 11-year-olds, and the reason being is I think parents are realizing that their kid needs to improve how they run and that sort of thing, and I think it's really important. So there's never too early to really do it. I know that sounds strange, but in my studies, I did a developmental kinesiology degree in my master's, and one of the pages was on papers that I wrote. It was quite large. It was on pediatric training. And girls, for instance, gain a lot of bone mass from doing strength work or movements, different movements, prior to puberty. It's really, really important. For boys, they're not as mature, so they generally can't last as long mentally for a training session. So usually the girls can actually start training a little bit longer than the boys at an earlier age. Right. But look, the main thing is that probably variety of movements. I'm big on force vectors. So I remember saying to my wife, my son, he's only playing basketball, and then he's doing acceleration, and then he's doing a little bit of soccer, whatever. He's not doing a lot of different things. And she goes, well, acceleration is kind of like another sport, really, because you're getting forces in different vectors and so forth. You're not just doing a lot of linear lifting if it's strength training. I think that's something to keep in consideration. So depending on the sport, some sports, specialization is really at 15. I know a lot of your listeners are probably starting to specialize a bit earlier than that. Yep. But if you are starting to specialize, I think you need to consider getting in some recreational sport on a regular basis and having a look at your 7-day calendar. Realistically, from a training load point of view, you shouldn't be like the most that you should be training. You should take a day and a half off as a minimum. I think realistically, I like 2 days. Mathematically, it's impossible to get training monotony if you take 2 days off a week. Yep. Ideally, not both Saturday and Sunday, like a Wednesday and a Sunday as such. So that's a mathematically scientific way of making sure you don't get overtrained as easily. Yep. So that doesn't mean Monday you might train twice. So you train in the morning, train in the afternoon. There's nothing wrong with that. Yep. Managing fatigue, but that's really good. But as a bare minimum, parents should be looking at the calendar, and their child should be taking 1 day off for sure. And sometimes we're having clients turning up with fractured femurs and so forth that haven't been taking days off at all. So, and they're very talented football players and so forth. So probably my first thing would be look at your 1 week calendar. And was envisioning writing a book for parents because you're essentially the first high performance manager of an athlete.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So they manage the calendar with the tennis coach or the golf coach or whatever, along with the school, along with academics, along with other recreational, and just giving them space to be bored, essentially.
Yeah.
So what I see, like an acceleration, where does that fit in terms of training or acceleration type of training, is really blocking it out like a section, an important section within their training week. So you've got your skill acquisitions or technical, and you got tactical sessions, technically, all that sort of stuff. So I'm repeating technical.
Yeah,
so there are different aspects to training, but physiologically, as I was saying to you off air, I think there's a real good point for just focusing on the body for, at a certain age, 1 day a week, and then maybe going out to 2 days a week. I don't think in those ages you need to do any more than 2 days a week, frankly. But it is very difficult to manage time. So as people are listening, they're like, oh, wow, where will we fit that in? Essentially, what you've got to do is start doing some negotiating and going, this is so important to us that we're willing to give up on a school training session, and you've got to have those hard conversations with your club coach or with a coach and just going, this is so important to us. We know for his future or her future that we need to get this in. Then those conversations are important.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think it probably segues into the next little group that I want you to pretend that we're addressing here is the 1 year out student athlete. I think, about to go to America. They've signed up. They're just about to sign their scholarship papers and they're about to go. But interesting, just before you talk about, some advice and tips for those athletes, just an interesting point you made there would be, I think, education again. I think understanding from a young age your body, understanding what your weak parts are, and what you're susceptible to. So identifying that I seem to get sore here when I do this. So one question before we move on to that next group would be, from a screening point of view, when's too early to have a screening and say, right, these are your really good, strong areas. These are the bits you probably need to hone in on and take care of a bit more.
I don't think it's ever too early to screen from certain aspects. So what we do is we do little accelerator testing and stuff where we don't actually get times or anything because it's not results orientated, but it's more just quality of movement. So qualitative analysis. Yeah. So we have our most successful advertising campaign is, does your kid run funny? And a lot of parents go, yes, my son or daughter does run funny, So the reason why is because they don't really get taught how to run. They just go,
just run.
Not that you think you'd have to be taught, but when you consider there's nothing normal about being an elite athlete. To become an elite, you've got to do things more elite, I suppose. Essentially, you've got to run properly because you're just going to break. And it doesn't matter what the sport is, as long as if it's in the water. Even swimmers get injuries because of the way they walk more than the way they swim. So they swim very well, but because swimmers are very hypermobile, so they walk very like spaghetti. If they increase that load, because sometimes swimming coaches will, hey, go for a 5K jog or whatever, just to build up your aerobic fitness. It's a bit different and whatever. I'm like, their bodies are not made to run for 5Ks, So yeah, look, how they move is absolutely vital, and that particular assessment, and that's where I mentioned is about artificial intelligence. We're using it in two forms. One is we're using one particular software that's actually from America, from a famous guy that was involved with the Phoenix Suns for a long time, and it's an analysis. It's a movement analysis, and it gives us a score, and then we can actually implement exercises, retest again. So someone can do that from the comfort of their own home very simply. Amazing. But the other one is analysis of running, and we're very excited by that one. And basically, it'll allow us to break down the run, be able to give good solid advice to somebody from anywhere, and they're able to do the testing session themselves with a phone and so forth on a tripod. And that qualitative analysis, I don't think it can come too early, because if you can tidy it up early, as I've said in the past, is like Carl Lewis is a great example. He was a beautiful runner in the 1980s because he started working on his form when he was 12 years old. and that's the age group that you're talking about. Now, if he was the fastest man in the world for a very long time, and he had beautiful running technique, if you think about it, if you start on that technique, and it doesn't have to be arduous, you're talking about half an hour once a week, and it chips away. It's amazing how much a young athlete improves just on doing 30 minutes
properly
a week. Yeah.
Yep.
That's all they do is focus on that. And then all of a sudden you watch Jimmy play football on the weekend and he's like running better than you've ever seen him. It's quite bizarre. It's quite good to watch. Yeah.
Not running funny anymore.
That's it.
Okay. So let's move into this next group. So obviously we've got a lot of these guys listening right now in this little particular group of student athletes, and you've gone through the process. You're nearing the end of school. You may have already finished school. You're in that 9-month break between school and heading over in August. Tips for those student athletes, Stewart, what to expect. We've touched on it a little bit, what to expect when you move to the US. Is there any way they can merge what they've learnt back home and build it into their everyday lives on their college campus, again, separate to the normal team training? So as you said earlier, the volume often of training and the volume of competition over there is significantly higher than what they're used to. And that can, if not managed properly, they can be left behind with performance, and obviously injury becomes something that's possible, which obviously we're all trying to avoid. So any tips around that, mate?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question, and I'll just go through. I've got a bunch of things that I wanted to cover on this one.
Please do.
The first one, the number one thing for you as an athlete that want to get it clear is you want to arrive fit and fresh. So you want to really build up your training load just prior to going to America to make sure that you can handle really high loads, and then taper quickly, 7 to 10 day taper, definitely 7 as a minimum, where you pretty much cut off all training really, and some light stuff or whatever, obviously touch, skill, touch, technical stuff maybe, but really drop that off so that the way you arrive into America, you've been through hell already, you've put yourself through a lot, and then you're fresh and ready to go, so that way, regardless of how hard or easy things are when you first arrive, you've done everything possible to be prepared.
Yep.
That would be the first thing. So the other one thing is prepare for the differences. So when we work with college athletes leading into college, I know what they're going to experience. So therefore, we lift them somewhat similar to how they're going to lift in college, even though we'll still have the individualization and so forth, but we are going to lift them the way they expect to lift when they get there. That way, they're also prepared physically from a strength conditioning point of view.
That's again coming back to that point, having a really good understanding of what they're going into just is a really
it's volume. It's
huge.
It is. Then the other one that I pointed here, this is probably a little bit more something that I've caught on to in the more recent years, not so much in my years when I was in America, was you need to understand where the coaches and the programmers at that you are going into. What are your expectations? So are you coming in as a hot recruit that's going to be playing minutes or going to be playing or competing straight away, and they're expecting you to produce? And understanding, is the coach under pressure? Like, are they in the last year of their contract? Are they in their first year of their contract and they're not under any pressure? Is it a developing program and they're not expecting anything too much from you or whatever? Not saying you should decrease your expectations, but just so you can empathize with the coach, because when the coach goes off his banana in the first couple of months or whatever, I'm saying him, it could be a female coach as well, then you kind of get why they're stressed, because
totally agree.
Yeah. Yep. So that way, because I think Aussie kids can really struggle with that initially, because they've never had coaches talk to them like that before. And I just don't want to scare people off, but I think that's a legitimate thing, that therefore once they've built this shell and resilience or whatever, they're arriving going, I fully expect to be roused on at some point in time.
Yep.
And I'm not going to get emotional about it. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, and sometimes for no good reason.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you got to cop that, right?
Yeah. So that's a sort of outside of strength conditioning, but I feel like it's part of performance. I feel like that's what I'm saying is we're not strength and conditioning coaches, we're performance coaches. And I feel like that's a big thing. From a strength and conditioning point of view or physical point of view, definitely I'm a big habits person, really big. So before you arrive into America, you should have really built some solid recovery habits that you will do. Rain, hail, or shine, doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing. You're on the road, you're in Oklahoma. There's nothing but a McDonald's there or something. You know what you're going to eat, or you know what you're going to like. How's your gut handle types of foods, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
How's trigger pointing work for you? Do you need to get ice for an ice bath? Like, you don't expect a team to do everything for you. You may need to do things for yourself. I'm only going out there or reaching out all the way to ice baths or whatever. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm saying be prepared yourself to, look after yourself.
It's your body, look after it, and don't expect anyone else to do it for you. And I think to that point, this is all terrific advice. To that point, I think it's so important. These coaches don't necessarily owe you anything when you get there. They've given you the opportunity, which is once in a lifetime opportunity. They've most likely given you some form of scholarship, and it's up to you to make sure you take that opportunity. And this is exactly what you're saying is a great example of it. Don't rely on anyone else to make you a better athlete. You've got to do it yourself. And I think habits before you go over prepares you as well as you possibly can be for that.
Probably the other thing, I wrote it down there again. I said it earlier and I wanted to say it again, is I think one of the reasons why I was successful in America was when I arrived, I was very open. So when I arrived, I wasn't closed. So what I mean by that is when I arrived, I'm ready and I'm willing to take on everything and anything. I'm willing to listen. I want to learn from these people. I want to do this and that. I'm here for the full experience, the full lifetime experience.
Yep.
So I think an Aussie going over there, not thinking, it's better back in Australia. The strength coaches are better. My tennis coach or my basketball coach or my rugby coach or whatever it is better over there, that sort of thing. You need to eliminate that. You're not there for that. You're there to get a different experience, and it's going to be different. There's going to be good things and bad things and so forth. And I think having that mindset combined with adding in your tools. So when a great handyman, when they arrive at your house to fix something, they've got the tools in the tool bag ready to fix your problem.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah. So as an athlete, you need to have those tools. And one of those tools is you need to have the right mindset, but you need to also have good recovery systems. You need to be well educated so you know what to do with your body when that hip starts to hurt or that sort of thing. So you're not 100% reliant on the athletic trainers to help you.
Yep.
Look, you can't fix everything, but you can try darn well. Like you should know your body exactly. I thought you were right on the money there, Chris. You've got to know your body, but you've got to build that resilience, but then you've also got to have all your plan B, C, D to make sure that you've got yourself covered.
Love that, and love the be open advice. I mean, if nothing else from this episode, kids don't take anything else away but that point. I think it's absolutely crucial. The open-mindedness and that's some of the best advice we've had on our podcast. I really resonate with that, and because I've lived that myself, and I just wish I had heard this before I went. It would have changed. I've had the most amazing experience, but my first year was pretty rough. When my body wasn't quite ready, and I was blaming everything. I was blaming, the American system, the coach, my bed, the weather. In my case, tennis, the courts, anything, the wind, anything I could think of, I could blame. I did, and it was only with a little bit of maturity and experience, and probably a mum and dad saying, "Pull your head in," that I became far more open and patient and embraced the good and the not so good as well. So. But yeah, that's terrific advice. I really appreciate it, because I think it coming from a different voice and someone who's experienced over there, rather than just hearing it from me, is our student athletes hear this sort of stuff a little bit from us. So really appreciate your take on that. I think that's really powerful stuff.
That's great. Thanks.
So Look, very, very last thing, just quickly, just make a quick note. I want to just quickly touch on when these kids are home, student athletes are home from college. Naturally, you put your feet up, you want to be with your family, back in your comfort zone, catching up with friends who, what they've been up to, and you might go on a family holiday, whatever it is. What are some of the things you think they should be doing when they're back? Is it something that is just ongoing? Get back in touch with their coaches and maybe do some acceleration type of stuff. Is it something? Should they be having a clean break? Should they be continuing to compete, train, things like that?
I know. I definitely think the biggest issue that Australia has is this is about size, strength thing, depending on your sport, obviously, is I love the quote, and I used to put it on my summer workout programs when I was a college strength coach. Is I think it's President Benjamin Franklin or something like that, and the quote was the winter will ask what you've been doing all summer. And that was for a winter sport. It was particularly useful because if you're a settler in America, same thing in Australia really, but particularly in America because it snows, it's quite cold, is if you don't work very hard during the summer to make sure you got plenty of food, you'll die in the winter.
Yep.
Or you'll get very, very hungry and you'll go, man, I should have worked a lot harder and got a lot more food organized before the winter came because otherwise now we're in trouble.
Yep.
I feel the same thing, the sport they use, I don't do the work when the lights are off, and it's a real mentality that I want athletes to get in their mind is that come back to Australia, socialize and stuff, but at the end of the day, go to work during the week, get your training sessions in, make sure you get all your strength in and that sort of stuff. I mean, if they're allowed to work a job or whatever, obviously they might want to do that as well. So that in itself should be a break. So you're working a job, you're not studying.
Sure.
You're back in Australia. That's a break.
Yep.
So, but you can't have your cake and eat it as well. You've still got to get your workouts in.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, I'd be hitting that. And nothing. I tell you, no program loves it more than a strength and conditioning coach when you arrive back and you show them the full workout completed, they go, this kid, and I tell you, I've been in those meetings, sit down with the coaches and just go, this kid means business. You should see his summer program. He has filled it out to the T. He looks in great shape or she looks in great shape. And then you see the other one turns up, oh yeah, sorry, I lost it or whatever. I'm just like, mate, you didn't do the work. You can tell.
Yeah, and when it comes to game time and opportunity, who's going to get it, right?
And the Americans are really big on that. And initially, they'll give you a red hot crack if they know that you gave her a crack during the summer. They'll go, we're watching. We're looking for you to be successful, and they'll put you in the starting five or they'll put you in the whatever, and then it's for you to lose then. Yep. Whereas if you come in a little bit out of shape, excuses, lost the program, didn't have time, that sort of stuff, they're going, oh,
Yep.
bench.
So another really good point and something I've just recorded a very, very quick short podcast not long ago regarding maximizing your summer break, how important that is. So that talks to that as well. I think, that's really, really good advice. And I guess one of my favorite philosophies that spurred me on when I was competing was right at this moment, who's working harder than me? That's my favorite thought.
Yeah.
No one. Okay, great. And then we actually go in to compete 3 months later, that you've worked harder than everyone else, and mentally you deserve to win. Conversely, if you haven't done the work somewhere in there subconsciously, you haven't done the work, and when it comes to the crunch in a tight situation in a competition, you will not be as mentally ready or strong or necessarily believe that you deserve to win, or deserve to compete well. So it's amazing, that concept, how much confidence you get from doing hard work, right?
That's what I really like about someone like yourself who's been through that. And so you've even vocalized the negative stuff, the negative thoughts, the negative experiences, the positive. Yeah. You've experienced that, and you've experienced the other where you've supremely prepared yourself and you know that you can perform. You've had all that. Someone like myself, I've had it more from the outside. So I bring a different perspective from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But I really like it when someone's lived it, breathed it, they're passionate about it. And that's why we're involved with you guys, is that I truly believe in that, Chris. It's super important to me, all this stuff that we've talked about, because I really want to make a difference to Australian kids, and I really want Australian kids to go to America and get that experience. But it's got to be done the right way. And that's why when you and I chatted, I really liked your philosophy of your company and how you go about it. I think it's yeah, you only get, look, probably a big thing for me is you only only have one life, and you're only young once, and you only get this one chance to go to college and do all this sort of stuff.
Yep.
And I'm really philosophical about where does sport sit in things as well. Like,
Yep.
Like just because, I mean, I worked with guys and they were going, I'm going to the NFL, I'm going to the NBA and stuff. And frankly, I was lucky enough to experience that. I trained guys that went to the NFL. I trained guys that went to the NBA. But I worked in it for 6 years, and I saw one guy go to the NBA, and I saw, I think, two guys go to the NFL. And, one guy went in the NBA for a long time, and the other guys went in the NFL for a year, and
Yep.
that was it. So what are you getting from sport? And what you're getting from sport, that exact attitude that you've got, is the same attitude you bring to business, and that's how you become successful. And so therefore, as parents, if I'm a parent, I'm just going, well, what is my son going to get out of playing college sport? Well, it's not just the college scholarship. It's the process of working in elite sport, having to deal with different personalities, and going through the process of being an elite athlete. It's not easy. And if you do a good job and you do it very conscientiously, you can then roll that over into success throughout the rest of your life.
Exactly, regardless of how far you get in your sport, right?
Correct.
As you point out. So look, yeah, this is great. I think we need to do another one, mate. We're only just scraping the surface now.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to get going, aren't we? But yeah, certainly can feel your passion, and really pleased that we're partnered. And I think I speak for the whole Study and Play USA team, and hopefully on behalf of the listeners here, that I think it's a pretty exciting partnership moving forward. So we might just finish on that, Stewart, and that point there. What are some of the things that the Study and Play USA community can expect, from the acceleration partnership, if they want to get involved with those types of things?
Yeah, just going along with the same philosophy as what I said before, is we're very much about individualized training. So it's all about either athletes coming to a training center, but specifically for the people listening is to train with us online. So we're getting our online training more and more better, more and more individualized, and it's better all the time. So we feel like we do that really well. We've got contracts with different organizations to do that for athletes around Australia and New Zealand and so forth. So people can contact us to train online and contact us to train in person. And very rarely they are, it's a very rare occasion or whatever, where they're actually able to get that cheaper. And the reason why they're able to get it cheaper through the referral from you guys is because we're excited to actually help them. Exactly what I've said in this interview is exactly how we provide our business. Is we're excited to make a difference to them. So it's not usual. So yeah, if people want to contact us and so forth, and just make sure they mention Study and Play, and obviously we'll check back with you guys. But if they contact us, then we'll be able to help them out with their pricing and make sure that the training is individualized to them.
That's terrific. And I think the last little message for listeners, you reach out to us as well if you have any questions about it. We're more than happy to have a chat and set you up with Stewart and his team. So look, great place to finish, I think, and that's been good fun, mate. We probably went a little bit longer than we planned, but that's great. That means we've covered off some pretty cool stuff, I reckon. So let's do it again sometime, but for now, thanks for having us. Thanks for being here. Sorry, mate. And thanks for your insight. I think some pretty cool little nuggets of gold there for the listeners. So
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
For sharing it.